My name is Emma Carter, and the moment my life fell apart started with the softest sound of baby booty slipping from my trembling fingers, landing without a thud on a pastel tablecloth. There I was, 8 months pregnant, surrounded by women I once called family, 30 of them, my best friend, my mother-in-law, my cousin, all watching me unwrap baby gifts and smile like my heart wasn't already pounding too hard in my chest. And then Mitchell, my husband, leaned in close enough for his breath to tickle my neck, and whispered, "She's not mine." That's all he said. He straightened his tie with this eerie calmness, took 3 steps across the living room, and stopped in front of Natalie, my childhood best friend, the same woman who had helped me plan every detail of this shower. With a steady voice, he announced, "We're leaving. The charade is over." He took her hand, Natalie, the woman I'd grown up with, who used to braid my hair and call me Em. I felt the baby kick hard, as if she knew, as if her tiny body could sense the wreckage collapsing inside me. My lungs tightened like my ribcage had forgotten how to move. I couldn't breathe. I whispered, "Mitchell, what are you doing?" He didn't look at me. He just raised a hand like he was stopping traffic. "Don't. Just don't, Emma." We both knew this was coming. Natalie didn't look ashamed. She looked relieved. She tilted her head slightly and said, "I'm sorry, Em, but we're in love. We have been for months." Her words didn't just slice through me, they poisoned the air. The baby booty was still there on the table, untouched, like a symbol of everything that had just been torn away. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Tick, tick, tick. 30 women frozen in silence. I saw someone set down a champagne glass with a faint clink. And then, well, my mother-in-law, Catherine Gordon, broke the silence with a voice like polished steel. "I suppose that explains why the baby doesn't look like anyone in the Gordon family on the ultrasound." I looked at her. Really looked at her. 3 years of holiday dinners. 3 years of polite smiles. Just last week, she helped me choose nursery paint yellow for a surprise gender. She'd kissed my cheek and told me how excited she was to meet her first grandchild. And now she was watching me unravel with satisfaction. "Catherine," my friend Mia snapped from across the room, her hands balled into fists. "Are you serious right now?" Catherine's lips curved, not quite into a smile. "I have always had my doubts. Mitchell deserves better than some little gold digger who probably got pregnant on purpose to trap him." Every word she said felt like a nail driven deeper into my spine. I tried to stand, to say something, anything, but my legs felt like soaked wool. My vision blurred. My heart was thundering in my ears. My body heavy with betrayal and baby and humiliation. "Emma, breathe," Mia said, suddenly at my side, her hand pressing into my back like an anchor. But it was too late. The damage had already begun to spread. I could see it in the eyes around me, doubt, judgment, whispers waiting to happen the second I left. Even my Aunt Linda, Natalie's mother, wouldn't meet my gaze as she brushed invisible crumbs off her dress and said, "Well, I suppose we should go. This is unfortunate." Unfortunate. That was the word they chose for my life burning down in real time. One by one, they filed out. Some mumbled awkward apologies. Most didn't say a word. Within 20 minutes, I was alone in a room filled with shredded wrapping paper, untouched cupcakes, and gifts I didn't want anymore. Only Mia, my sister Claire, and I remained. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped everything out and left the shell behind. Claire knelt next to me. Her voice was soft. "Let's get you home." I shook my head slowly, eyes still on the yellow nursery catalog on the coffee table. "This is my home." Mitchell and I had bought this house together. We had painted the walls ourselves. He'd held me here every night, whispering dreams about our baby's first steps. Claire said, firmer now, Not anymore. Not after what he just did. We're packing your things tonight. But where would I go? I only worked part-time at the library. Mitchell handled all our finances. I didn't even know what accounts we had or how much was left. That night, as we packed in silence, Mia sat on the couch with our shared laptop. Her fingers froze on the trackpad. "Emma," she said, her voice suddenly tight, "you need to see this. Our joint bank account, the one we'd agreed would hold money for the baby, for emergencies, for us. Balance, $247.39. Gone." Mitchell had been siphoning money out for months, dozens of transfers small enough to go unnoticed. I couldn't breathe. Again. My phone buzzed. A new message. "Mitchell, don't make this harder than it has to be. The lawyer will contact you about the divorce. The house is in my name, so you need to be out by Friday. 3 days. 3 days to vacate the only stability I had left, carrying the weight of a child who hadn't even taken her first breath. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead, I opened my drawer and found the wedding necklace silver, delicate, a gift he gave me on our wedding night. I unclasped it, held it in my palm. It felt heavier than I remembered. I let it drop. It hit the wooden floor with a clink that sounded exactly like goodbye. Mia was staring at the laptop, scrolling. "He planned this. Look, he's been emptying the account slowly so you wouldn't notice." I felt a sharp pain move across my ribs. The baby kicked again, as if reminding me she was still there, still growing, still real. And then Mitchell sent another text. "Mitchell, stop playing games. We both know you were seeing someone else last Christmas." I stared at the words until they blurred. Last Christmas. He meant Jake, my online study partner, the man who'd helped me pass my first finance course, the one who'd introduced me to his husband at the faculty Christmas party. Mitchell had met Jake. He knew. He'd shaken his hand. This wasn't about paternity. This was about narrative. If Mitchell could make people believe I cheated, he wouldn't just walk away. He'd walk away clean. And in a town like ours, that meant everything. I whispered, "He's lying. He knows he's lying." But I also knew it didn't matter. Not here, not now. The story was already out there, and everyone had chosen sides. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my mattress on the floor because we'd already packed the bed, listening to the radiator hiss, the wind scratching at the window panes. Beside me, boxes were piled high, my suitcase half zipped. My body ached, my back, my legs, even my fingertips pulsed with tension. My daughter shifted inside me like she was rolling away from the noise. Mitchell had stripped me of everything but her. 3 days later, Mia helped me carry the last box out of our house. No, his house now, he made sure to say that in every message. I looked back one last time. The yellow nursery door was cracked open, soft light pooling from the glow in the dark stars Mitchell and I had painted on the ceiling together. I had cried the night we finished. He'd held me and whispered, "She'll fall asleep looking up at magic." Now that same ceiling looked like a joke. I clutched a small frame. I hadn't packed a black and white sonogram photo, the one I'd taped to the fridge for months. The one he said looked too much like a blob. I slipped it into my coat pocket. That photo would stay with me. Mia drove me across town to a bakery I barely remembered, the kind of place old ladies met for coffee at 8 a.m. and gossiped about who wore white after Labor Day. The upstairs apartment was tiny, just one bedroom, a cramped galley kitchen, and a bathroom where the window wouldn't close all the way. The floor creaked when you breathed too hard. But the landlady, Mrs. Martha, handed me the key and said, "If you keep my books in order, you can stay rent-free the first 2 months. Just cover your electric." That's how I became a part-time bookkeeper above a bakery I never planned to walk into. My first night there, I stood in the living room holding the sonogram photo. The light flickered overhead. There was a patch of wallpaper peeling in the corner. I looked around at the scuffed linoleum, the crooked blinds, the thin walls, and for the first time since Mitchell walked out, I whispered out loud, "We're gonna be okay." But small towns don't forget scandal, and they don't forgive women like me. I'd walk into the grocery store and feel eyes on me like pricks along my spine. Women who had smiled at me weeks before now pulled their carts tighter to their sides. Some whispered. Some didn't even pretend. "That's her, the one who tried to trap Mitchell. He's better off. She was just a library clerk anyway. She's not even asking for child support, must be guilty." That last part stung the most, because it was true. I hadn't filed for anything yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew what it would look like. In their eyes, I was a desperate woman chasing a paycheck. A liar. A seductress who'd faked a pregnancy to keep a man. In Mitchell's version of the story, I was the villain. And no one questioned it, because in this town, a man in a pressed shirt and a real estate license was always more believable than a tired pregnant woman in thrift store jeans. I started collecting coupons again, counting dollars and cents at the register, every time the cashier raised an eyebrow at my total. I felt smaller, like maybe I was what they thought I was. But then I'd come home, climb the stairs with aching knees, and see her, the baby bump, the kicks, the heartbeat I listened to every night with an old stethoscope Mia found at Goodwill. She was still here, and she still deserved everything. The lowest point came 3 weeks later, at Kroger. I was picking up milk and dry cereal, my new staple diet, when I turned the corner near the produce section and heard a voice that stopped me cold. "Oh, the girl is definitely Mitchell's. You should see her tie. Gordon knows and everything." "Catherine, my ex-mother-in-law." She was talking to a woman I recognized from church choir Helen, I think. But Mitchell had to get out of that mess. Catherine continued, snapping a grape off the bunch like it was punctuation. Emma was bleeding him dry. All those books she kept buying. The online classes wasting his money. I froze behind the tower of oranges. My cart still half empty. Helen responded, "Is he paying child support?" Catherine let out a little laugh, like the whole thing was beneath her. "Not a penny. He's not on the birth certificate. Remember, Emma's too proud to ask for a paternity test. She knows it would embarrass her when everyone finds out about her little affair." I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and hit record. The sound wasn't perfect. It picked up the soft clatter of carts, the distant hum of the freezer aisle. But Catherine's voice, clear as glass. "He's better off. Natalie's pregnant now, too. At least this one's legitimate." My knees buckled, but I didn't let them give. I placed a hand on my stomach, steadying both of us. "Natalie, pregnant." The woman who destroyed my family now got to play happy wife while Mitchell told the world I was a fraud. And my daughter? My daughter was another situation. I left the cart in the aisle and walked straight out of that store. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat on the kitchen floor and played that recording over and over again. Mitchell knew. Catherine knew. And now I had proof. That night, I did 2 things. First, I picked up the wedding necklace from the box I'd thrown it into. I stared at it tangled, cold, useless. Then I clasped it around my neck, not as a symbol of love, as armor. Second, I opened a blank piece of paper and started writing a letter to my unborn daughter. "Dear Ashley, if you're ever old enough to read this, I want you to know your father chose to walk away, but your mother chose to fight. Not just for you, but for the truth." The next morning, I sent the audio file to a woman named Rachel Meyer, a scrappy young lawyer who'd taken Mia's advice to look at my case. She responded within hours. "Emma, this is huge. This proves knowledge and intent to defraud. We can file for paternity, child support, back pay, possibly damages." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I typed back just 4 words. I want it all. The photos Mia brought weren't grainy or speculative. They were sharp, clear, taken in perfect lighting with perfect angles. The first was Natalie and Mitchell under a mistletoe, kissing like they were the only people on Earth. The timestamp, December 24th, 11:47 p.m. The same Christmas Eve, Mitchell told me he had to stay late at the office. The same night, I'd made him a home-cooked meal and waited until almost midnight, keeping the food warm on the stove. He came home smelling like cheap perfume and said it was from a coworker's goodbye party. Now I knew what kind of goodbye he meant. There were more photos. Dinner dates, weekend trips, a beach photo of them tangled up in a hammock. The sun kissing her hair while he looked at her the way he hadn't looked at me in months. One caption read, "1 year together. Forever started, long before the dang." They weren't even trying to hide it. I stared at the photos so long I could see them even when I closed my eyes. Mia stood quietly by the sink, waiting. She knew better than to speak when I was processing rage. Finally, I said it out loud. "They've been together since before I even got pregnant." Mia nodded slowly. That's why he was so confident. He was building the lie before he even left. I clenched my fists. My fingers dug crescents into my palms. I didn't even notice I was crying until I felt the tear hit the back of my hand. "He flipped the script," I said. "Made me the cheater. Made me the villain. While he's playing house with my best friend." I stood up, grabbed the sonogram photo from the fridge, and looked at it. My daughter's tiny curled spine, her little fist already clenched. "He took everything," I whispered, "but he doesn't get to take her." For the next week, I barely slept. I worked on Mrs. Martha's books during the day, sorting receipts and rebuilding inventory sheets. At night, I opened every single bank transaction tied to our joint account and traced the money trail like a detective on a cold case. $300 here, $140 there, monthly transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Mitchell had been bleeding our finances dry for over 6 months. I flagged every entry, documented every name, printed every receipt. Rachel, the lawyer, was impressed. "You're building a case stronger than most forensic teams," she said over the phone. "Keep going. Don't stop." Then Mia delivered a second bombshell. She had gone digging, not in dark alleys or anonymous sources, just Facebook, Twitter, Venmo. Public footprints most people forget they're leaving behind. She found a mutual friend, Jenna, who used to work at the bank with Natalie. Turns out, Jenna had gotten very drunk at a girls' night and very loose-lipped. Mia played the voice recording she secretly made. Jenna, slurring slightly. "Natalie told me she got pregnant on purpose. Like, she knew Mitchell wouldn't leave his wife unless she gave him a reason." The world stopped spinning. Natalie had planned it. She'd intentionally gotten pregnant while Mitchell was still married to me, just to lock him in. The same Natalie who helped me fold onesies at my own baby shower. The same Natalie who held my hand when I cried over backaches. The same Natalie who kissed Mitchell the night before our last anniversary. I didn't know whether to scream or throw up. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, lit only by the under-cabinet bulb and the flickering streetlight outside, and wrote another letter to Ashley. "You were not a mistake. You were not a trap. You are not someone's excuse to run. You are mine, and I will never let anyone use you as a weapon again." Rachel called the next morning. Her voice was giddy. "Emma, I did some digging of my own. Guess what I found?" Mitchell's big promotion, the one that supposedly funded his new house with Natalie. It wasn't a raise. It was a loan from Catherine. A private loan, secured against our old house. The same house Mitchell claimed was his and kicked me out of. "Under Ohio marital property law," Rachel explained, "you were co-owner by default. He forged paperwork to exclude your signature. That's fraud." Mitchell had stolen the roof over our heads and turned it into collateral for his new life. I felt the same cold sweat crawl down my spine, the one I'd felt at the baby shower when everything unraveled. But this time, I wasn't helpless. This time, I had evidence. Rachel outlined the plan. Step 1. File a paternity suit. Step 2. Submit the audio of Catherine admitting knowledge. Step 3. File a civil suit for fraud, financial damages, and emotional distress. Step 4. Put Mitchell's face in front of a judge. And Step 5, that part was mine to design. Then came the invitation. Mia showed up with it tucked under her arm like it was radioactive. "You're not going to believe this." It was embossed, thick cardstock, gold foil lettering. "A prince is coming. Baby shower for Natalie Phillips. Held at the most expensive country club in town. Catered, champagne fountains, string quartet, the guest list. Half the same people who had watched my humiliation in silence." Mia tossed it on the table like it was a challenge. She has some nerve. I stared at the invitation. The date was 2 weeks away. Then, quietly, I said, "I have an idea." Mia blinked. "Emma, what are you thinking?" I ran my finger along the edge of the envelope. "They ruined my baby shower with lies. I'm going to ruin hers. With the truth." Mia's smile was slow and wicked. "Count me in." We spent the next 10 days preparing. Rachel filed the official motion for paternity and child support, backed with the recording of Catherine and Jenna's testimony. Mia created a slideshow of every photo, every post, every timestamp. I picked out a dress for Ashley White, soft cotton, with tiny ruffles at the shoulders. She was 9 months old now, and every day she looked more like Mitchell. His eyes, his chin, even Catherine's nose. I tucked the sonogram photo into my purse. I printed my letter to Ashley and folded it into my wallet. And on the morning of the baby shower, I did something I hadn't done in months. I put on the wedding necklace again, not for memory, but for momentum. The parking lot of the Fairwood Country Club was lined with luxury SUVs and pastel balloons swaying gently in the breeze. Inside, the celebration had already begun, laughs drifting out the tall windows, the clink of champagne flutes, the distant trill of a string quartet. I adjusted Ashley's dress one last time, smoothing the soft ruffles around her shoulders. Her dark curls bounced as she babbled, completely unaware of the storm we were about to walk into. "Ready, baby girl," I whispered. She responded with a giggle and a fistful of my necklace. I took that as a yes. As we walked across the lot, every step felt heavier, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of everything I had been forced to carry the past 9 months. Shame that wasn't mine, judgment I hadn't earned, silence I'd chosen just to survive. Not anymore. I pushed open the door, and silence fell, like the sound had been vacuumed from the room. Natalie was seated at the center of a gift throne, wrapped in blush and ivory, cradling her baby bump like it was royalty. Mitchell stood beside her in a fitted suit, smiling like the world hadn't just watched him abandon his pregnant wife. Eyes turned. Conversations froze mid-sentence. A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the floor. I stepped in, holding Ashley tight. Heads turned, mouths opened. One woman gasped, That's her." Mitchell's smile collapsed. Natalie's face went pale. And Catherine clutched her pearls like she'd seen a ghost. "What is she doing here?" Catherine hissed, storming toward me, heels clicking with indignation. Someone reached for their phone. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." I didn't flinch. "I wouldn't call security just yet," I said, voice even. "Not when I have such good news to share." I walked past the string quartet, past the white-gloved servers holding trays of shrimp cocktail, past a wall of expensive floral arrangements, straight to Mitchell. I could see the panic in his eyes, the way his jaw twitched, his nostrils flared. "Mitchell," I said softly, I wanted you to be the first to know. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folded envelope. The results came back, 99.97%. Congratulations. I turned so the room could see Ashley, now wide-eyed, staring at the crowd. You're a father. Gasps, whispers, a few audible oh my gods. A chair scraped loudly as someone stood up to see better. Natalie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at Mitchell, her voice cracking. That's not possible. You said. He lied. I interrupted. Just like he lied about me cheating. Just like he lied about wanting to make our marriage work. I turned toward the crowd. He's been with Natalie since before I even got pregnant. I have the photos to prove it. Right on cue. Mia stepped forward from the far end of the room. She held up her phone, the screen already mirroring to the event projector thanks to a little help from the AV staff she'd sweet-talked on her way in. The slideshow began. Christmas Eve, December 24th, Natalie and Mitchell, wrapped around each other under the mistletoe, kissing, followed by beach vacation, dinner date, anniversary night. A full year of betrayal, projected 6 feet tall for the whole room to see. Catherine stepped forward, trying to snatch the phone from Mia's hand. This is nonsense, she barked. Photos can be faked. Oh, but voices can't, I said calmly. I pulled out my own phone, opened the audio file, and hit play. Catherine's voice rang through the speaker. Oh, the girl is definitely Mitchell's. She's got the Gordon nose and everything. But Emma was bleeding him dry. He had to get out. A stunned silence followed. Then a woman near the buffet table muttered, "She knew." Another voice. They all knew. Mitchell's face had gone from red to gray. Natalie. She was frozen, one hand still resting on her belly, the other clenched into a fist on her lap. Mitchell tried to speak. Emma, this isn't how. You wanted people to find out, I finished. You didn't want them to know you abandoned your pregnant wife, or that you emptied our bank account, or that you lied about being the father of your child just to protect your little fairy tale with her. Ashley let out a happy squeal, reaching toward Mitchell. Her tiny hand waved like she recognized him, because she did. She may not have understood what he'd done, but biology doesn't lie. Someone near the back whispered, "She looks exactly like him." Natalie was crying now, the perfect image she had built cracked and crumbling. "Mitchell," she choked. "Tell them it's not true. Please tell them." He couldn't. The truth was printed, recorded, projected, smiling in my arms. I took a deep breath and turned to face the crowd again. For 9 months, you all believed the worst about me. You believed I trapped Mitchell with a baby, that I cheated, that I was some manipulative, desperate woman trying to hold on to a man who didn't want her. I looked around, meeting eyes that quickly dropped. You crossed the street to avoid me. You whispered about me at the grocery store. You made me feel like dirt under your shoes. But the truth is, Mitchell always knew she was his. He just didn't want to be held accountable. A beat. No one moved. Then, finally, a quiet voice from the back. "Emma, I'm so sorry." It was Mrs. Rodriguez, the florist who'd arranged the baby shower flowers. Her eyes welled with tears. "We should have known better." Others began to murmur. Heads nodded. A few walked away from Mitchell entirely. And I walked over to Mitchell and asked, flatly, "Would you like to hold your daughter?" He stared at Ashley, his face unreadable, his lips parted, but no words came. "She's 9 months old," I continued, "and she's never heard her father say he loves her. She doesn't know what it feels like to be wanted by the man who helped create her." Ashley reached toward him again, this time with a giggle. Mitchell looked like he might collapse. "Emma," he said, hoarse, "please." "Please what I asked. Please don't show them who you really are. Please don't make you face the consequences." The room was still. "Ashley, as if sensing the tension, curled into my shoulder. I turned, slowly, and began walking toward the exit. But just before I reached the door, I paused. "Oh, and Mitchell," I said over my shoulder, "the court date for child support is Tuesday." I looked directly at Catherine. "Don't be late again." The next morning, I woke up to 32 text messages and 5 voicemails. Some were from women at the country club, their messages laced with hesitant guilt. "Emma, I don't know what to say. I believed him. I'm so sorry. I watched you fall apart and said nothing. I regret that more than I can say." Others weren't apologies, just silent hang-ups from blocked numbers. The one that haunted me most was the anonymous message from the night before. "You're welcome." Who sent it? Was it someone inside that room who finally felt remorse? Or someone outside, pulling strings the whole time? I didn't have the answer, but I was about to find out how far the damage truly went. 3 days later, Mitchell's attorney reached out. Or rather, tried to. Rachel intercepted everything. "He's panicking," she said with a smirk. "They want to settle. Quietly. Quickly. Of course they do." She leaned across the coffee shop table, her voice low. "But that's not what we're doing." We filed for back child support. Starting from Ashley's birth, we added emotional damages backed by Catherine's own voice. And the biggest blow of all, the house. Under state law, Mitchell had no right to use it as collateral. His loan from Catherine secured with my half of the deed was fraudulent. Rachel filed a motion to reclaim my share or force liquidation. Mitchell would either have to buy me out or sell the house. Either way, he was going to pay. Literally. A week later, the court date came. Mitchell didn't show, but his absence didn't stop the judge from ruling. He was ordered to pay $2,800 a month in child support, provide health insurance for Ashley, and cover childcare costs while I worked or studied. I cried not because I was happy, but because, for the first time in nearly a year, someone with authority looked at me and said, "You were wronged, and he will be held accountable." With the support payments, I enrolled in the last online courses I needed to finish my accounting degree. Ashley and I still lived in the tiny apartment above the bakery, but now it felt different, like a launch pad, not a cage. Mrs. Martha even let me take over her books entirely and referred me to 3 other small businesses nearby. I opened my own freelance bookkeeping service, called it Ashley Ledger, and made my daughter the logo. Every night after I rocked her to sleep, I worked, balanced sheets, wrote reports, built something real. I was no longer the woman Mitchell abandoned. I was the woman he underestimated. But the fallout on their side, it was brutal. Natalie filed for divorce 2 months after the country club incident. According to Jenna, yes, our favorite loose-lipped bank friend Natalie discovered that Mitchell had lied about everything, including finances. Turns out, he was over $60,000 in debt, most of it accrued after leaving me. She left with nothing but her maiden name and a newborn son. As for Catherine, that was the unexpected part. 3 weeks after the country club event, she knocked on my apartment door. No makeup, no pearls, just an old cardigan. Her eyes puffy with something that looked like real regret. Ashley was asleep. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. We stood on the landing in silence. "Finally," she said, "I want to meet her, my granddaughter." I didn't say anything. She looked down, then added, "I was wrong. I was afraid of what people would think." And I failed her. I crossed my arms, the old necklace around my throat suddenly heavier. "She's not a second chance for you, Catherine. She's a person, one you called a mistake." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, just once." I stared at the woman who once said I was a gold digger, who called my daughter that situation. And in that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting yourself move forward. I didn't do it for Catherine. I did it for Ashley. So I opened the door, let her in, watched her kneel beside the crib, trembling hands brushing my daughter's cheek. She whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over again. She started visiting weekly after that, bringing books, offering to babysit. And for once, she didn't tell people Ashley looked like her. She just loved her for who she was. 6 months passed. Ashley learned to walk wobbly, determined, fearless. She started saying mama and no in the same breath. She had Mitchell's stubborn chin, but my fire. One evening, I sat in my new office, a small rented room in a co-working space downtown. Ashley was drawing on the whiteboard behind me while I filed quarterly taxes for a local florist. That's when Rachel texted me. "Mitchell missed another payment. Want me to file for contempt?" I didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. No more chances." She replied with a thumbs up emoji and a message that read, "You're a fighter, Emma, and you're winning." But that night, after Ashley fell asleep and the dishes were done, I sat alone with my phone. And that anonymous message still haunted me. "You're welcome." I went back through my inbox, my voicemails, even my junk folder. Then I saw it. An old email I'd missed sent the morning after the country club showdown. Subject line FYI, you deserve better. Attached a PDF? A scanned copy of the original loan agreement between Mitchell and Catherine, signed 2 weeks before he served me divorce papers. There was only one person who could have accessed that. Jenna, the bank friend. The one who always sat quietly in the background. The one who never asked for thanks. I sent her a message. "Was it you?" She replied with a single heart emoji. "Sometimes allies come from the unlikeliest places." Cliffhanger, quiff and numb. But just when I thought the worst was over, another letter arrived in the mail. Not from Mitchell. Not from the court. From the IRS? And the name on the return address. Natalie Phillips. I opened it and felt my stomach drop. "This isn't over, Emma. You opened the floodgates. Now everyone's drowning." The envelope from Natalie was thick, too thick for a letter. I hesitated before opening it. Ashley sat on the floor beside me, stacking blocks, humming to herself like the world was made of soft colors and safe people. I wanted to believe this was over. That Mitchell's silence, the court's ruling, and Natalie's vanishing from my radar meant closure. But I knew better. I slid my thumb under the flap. Inside was a packet of documents and a sticky note written in neat, cold handwriting. "You wanted the truth. Here's your piece of it. Be careful what you wake up, Natalie." My hands tightened instinctively, the paper crinkling under my grip. I flipped through the first few pages. Tax filings, loan applications, correspondence between Mitchell and Catherine about moving money out of our accounts months before the divorce. Mitchell had used shell accounts opened under Catherine's maiden name to hide assets and avoid support payments. And Natalie had access to all of it. That night, I emailed Rachel everything. She called me at 11:52 p.m. "Emma, this isn't just lying to the court. This is criminal. He committed fraud across state and federal lines." She paused. "We need to go after him again. This isn't just family court anymore. This could go federal." I sat at the kitchen table, the envelope still open beside me, and let her words sink in. I wasn't just dealing with a coward who walked out on his family. I was dealing with someone who built a system to ensure I'd never recover, and someone who had help. The next few weeks moved like quicksand. Rachel filed a formal complaint with the State Financial Board. We subpoenaed bank records, tracked down emails Mitchell thought he'd deleted. Meanwhile, the IRS launched its own investigation based on Natalie's documentation. Mitchell's accounts were frozen. His real estate license suspended. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered him standing at my baby shower, buttoning his suit like it was any other Tuesday, whispering, "She's not mine," into my ear like it was a mercy. No, I didn't feel bad. I felt like I was finally breathing again. In the middle of all this, Catherine came to visit. Ashley was coloring at the kitchen table, her tiny hands smudged with green crayon. When the knock came, I opened the door expecting Mia or Rachel. But there stood Catherine, her hair pulled back tightly, makeup done, her armor back on. But something was different. Her eyes. They looked tired, like she was carrying something heavier than guilt this time. "May I come in?" I nodded. She looked around the apartment, taking in the toddler chaos, the toys on the rug, the laundry basket half folded, the baby gate propped against the wall. She smiled faintly at Ashley, then turned to me. "I didn't know," she said. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't know what? That Mitchell had opened accounts in my name, that he used my trust fund to hide money from you, from the courts, from the government. Her voice trembled. "They're investigating me, too. I might lose everything. I let him use my name because I believed him, because I thought you were the one lying." She looked at Ashley again. "But I see her now, and I see what I refused to see before." I didn't respond. I let the silence sit between us like truth. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. "But if this goes to trial, and they call me, I'll testify. I'll tell the truth." I nodded slowly. That's all I ever wanted. The investigation unfolded quickly after that. Mitchell was served with official charges, financial fraud, falsifying loan documents, obstruction of justice. When he finally responded through his new attorney, he claimed Natalie had manipulated the money trail, that she forged his signature on half the documents, that she was obsessed, unstable, emotionally coercive. Classic Mitchell. Blame the woman, twist the story, rewrite the villain into the victim. But he didn't realize something important. This time, the women had receipts. Rachel submitted a digital timeline, cross-referenced with account activity, security logs, and IP data that showed Mitchell's login credentials being used from his personal devices. We had bank cameras, email metadata, and Natalie, whether for revenge or redemption, gave a sworn deposition. When the court date arrived, Mitchell walked in like he still had a shot. Hair slicked, watch polished, new suit, but no one shook his hand. He looked smaller. We sat across the aisle, me, Ashley on my hip, Rachel flipping through a binder like she was reading bedtime stories to a guilty man. Mitchell didn't make eye contact. When Catherine took the stand, her voice shook, but her words didn't. "I knowingly allowed my son to use my accounts. I believed his story. I regret that more than anything in my life." The courtroom held its breath. Ashley, too young to understand, clapped when Catherine stepped down. The judge smiled. And for a brief second, I thought maybe this little girl was meant to witness this, to see the scales tip, to see adults held accountable. Mitchell was convicted of financial misconduct. He was ordered to pay restitution. And more importantly, he lost custody rights until he completed court-mandated parental accountability classes and paid back all owed support. It wasn't jail, but it was justice. And it was public. The local newspaper ran the story for 3 days straight. Headline on Sunday: "Real estate scandal rocks Fairwood fraud, lies, and a baby shower bombshell." I clipped that article and tucked it into the back of Ashley's baby book, right behind her hospital bracelet and a lock of her newborn hair. That night, after everything, I tucked her into bed and sat alone in the living room. The necklace still rested on my collarbone. The sonogram photo was still on the fridge. And beside me sat the original envelope from Natalie, the spark that lit the final fire. I pulled it out again, just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. And that's when I noticed it. One more folded slip of paper, wedged into the bottom of the stack. In Natalie's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I guess I'm sorry too, for thinking I had to steal your life to have a better one. Turns out, it was never real. I didn't recognize the number." But the message was clear. You won, but you weren't the only one he lied to. I stared at the screen, the glow casting eerie light across Ashley's sleeping face in the baby monitor beside me. A part of me wanted to delete it, pretend the chapter was closed. But another part stronger, sharper, knew better. Mitchell didn't lie just to escape. He lied to control the narrative. Even in ruin, he was still leaving collateral damage in his wake. I typed back, "Who is this?" No response. But I had a feeling the real ending wasn't about another twist. It was about what I chose to do now that I had everything back. 6 months later, Ashley turned 2. We celebrated in our new house, yes, our house, a modest 3-bedroom I bought with the settlement money from the fraud case and the steady income from my bookkeeping business. The backyard was nothing fancy. A wooden fence, patchy grass, and a creaky swing set we bought secondhand. But to us, it was paradise. Balloons floated lazily on string, cupcakes smeared in little hands, and laughter real, warm and whole. Catherine was there, cutting fruit and holding Ashley like she'd done it every weekend of her life. Mia was handing out juice boxes, laughing as one of the toddlers ran off with the birthday banner. And me. I was standing at the edge of the patio, watching Ashley smash chocolate cake into her hair, knowing she was loved, seen, wanted. A few days after the party, I finally opened the old voicemail box I'd stopped checking. There it was. A saved voice memo from almost a year ago. My voice, shaky, tired, recorded the night I left Mitchell's house. Ashley, if you're ever old enough to hear this, I want you to know something. Your mom didn't give up. Not when they lied. Not when they stole. Not when they tried to erase us. I fought. For you. For the truth. For the life you deserve. I closed my eyes and let the silence settle in my chest. I had kept that promise. Mitchell never showed his face in Fairwood again. Last I heard through Jenna, of course he'd moved 3 states over and was working under someone else's license, trying to rebuild from scratch. His name ruined. His access to financial institutions flagged. His reputation. Google tells the story now. He tried to contact me twice. Once through a court-mandated parenting coordinator, once through a handwritten letter I never opened. Ashley didn't need him to be okay. She had people who showed up, who stayed, who didn't call her a situation or try to pretend she didn't exist. She had me? One afternoon, while organizing files in my office, I came across the photo again. The sonogram, the blurry black and white swirl that had started this entire war. I'd laminated it and tucked it behind my business license, where no one could see it. It reminded me who I was when this started, scared, tired, and alone. But I wasn't that woman anymore. So I took the photo, pulled out a magnet, and placed it squarely on the fridge, right next to Ashley's latest finger painting. Full circle. People ask me sometimes, usually quietly, like they're afraid of being rude. Do you ever regret how you handled it? They mean, was it worth it? All the drama, the courtroom battles, the confrontation at the country club, the gossip, the way I tore everything wide open instead of just moving on. Here's what I tell them. I regret trusting a man who chose the easy way out. I regret staying silent when I should have spoken. But I don't regret standing in that room with my daughter in my arms, showing them the truth. I don't regret reclaiming my name, or my voice, or my future. Because if I hadn't, Ashley might have grown up thinking she was a burden. A question mark. A lie. Now, she's growing up knowing this, that her mother never backed down, that her story matters, and that no one, not a man in a suit, not a cold mother-in-law, not even a whole town of whispers gets to decide her worth. One evening, long after the dishes were done and the house had gone quiet, I sat down with a fresh sheet of paper. Ashley would start preschool soon. She was learning full sentences, asking big questions. And I knew, someday, she'd ask about her father. So I wrote her one last letter. Not to explain what happened, but to remind her. They tried to define us by the moment he left, but our story didn't begin with his betrayal. It began with you, and the moment I chose to fight for us. I folded the letter and tucked it behind the photo on the fridge. And as I turned out the lights and walked into Ashley's room to kiss her forehead, I whispered the same thing I had whispered since the very beginning. Mama's here. Mama's always going to be here. If you've ever had to rebuild from nothing, if you've ever been shamed for telling your truth, or if you simply believe no one should be erased, comment below. I believe her. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to start again louder, stronger, and unapologetically real. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories where the truth wins in the end. You deserve the full story. Always, Story 2. My name is Farah Rivers. I'm 35 years old, co-founder of a multi-million-dollar marketing firm in Seattle. And up until 5 days ago, I thought I had a good life. Then I looked out of a hospital window and watched my husband kiss my little sister. It wasn't just a kiss. It was that kind of kiss. Slow, intimate, familiar, the kind you give someone you've memorized. I was on the 37th floor, recovering from liver surgery, still in a hospital gown, hair greasy and pulled into a bun, skin pale from painkillers and IVs. I had 23 surgical staples across my abdomen, and yet somehow, the ache in my chest hurt more. They were in the cafeteria far below. Through the glass wall, I could see Ethan, my husband of 8 years, leaning across the table toward Melody, my sister, the same sister who had flown in from Portland to help me recover. Her hand was wrapped in his, her head tilted back in laughter. His thumb traced lazy circles on her palm, something he used to do to calm me down after my mom died, something he did when he wanted to feel close. I gripped the window ledge so tightly I felt the staples in my gut pull. I didn't care. My world was tearing itself apart in real time, and I was awake to witness it. Ethan had held my hand in pre-op just 3 days ago. "You're gonna wake up, and I'll be right here," he'd whispered. I believed him. I trusted him. Now I was watching the man I built a company with, the man I shared a mortgage, memories, and a marriage with, fall in love with my sister in full daylight, like I was already gone. And they didn't even try to hide it. A knock at the door pulled me out of the trance. "Mrs. Rivers, time for your medication." Nurse Patricia, mid-50s, kind eyes, always humming, came in with a small paper cup and a glass of water. "How are you feeling today?" she asked, her voice gentle, almost maternal. I tore my eyes away from the window, forced a smile. Better, much better. That was a lie. But not about the surgery. Physically, I was healing. Emotionally, I was somewhere between numb and on fire. I was wrecked. I was aware. "They've been taking turns visiting you," Patricia said cheerfully as she checked my vitals. "Your husband and your sister. It's really touching, seeing family come together like that." I almost choked on the water. Touching. She left after a few minutes of small talk about the new rooftop garden on the 7th floor. I nodded and murmured where I needed to. But my brain was no longer in this room. It was still 37 floors below, watching the two people I trusted most in the world betray me like it was the most natural thing. Melody had always been magnetic. That's the word people used. Red hair that shimmered in the light. A laugh that sounded like jazz in spring. I used to envy it, but I never thought she'd use it on him. I tried to piece it together. When had this started? How long had I been the fool? Was it last Christmas, when Ethan had suddenly started jogging again and needed space? Or last summer, when Melody showed up in Seattle just passing through, And they both insisted I didn't need to cancel my trip to Denver. And the worst part, the tumor had been benign, but for 48 hours, we'd all thought it might be cancer. Terminal, life-ending. Had Ethan cried because he was scared for me? Or because he thought I might die and clear the way for their romance to bloom? The thought made me sick. When Ethan texted me an hour later, "Getting coffee with Melody. Be back soon. Love you," my blood turned to ice. I screenshotted it. Then I opened the camera app and snapped a photo of them below, their bodies relaxed and casual, like nothing was wrong. Melody was now sitting beside him, one hand casually on his thigh. He didn't move it. I took more pictures, more evidence. I wasn't crying anymore. I was documenting. When they finally came back to the room, they walked in separately like a bad theater production. Melody was first. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold. Or guilt. Maybe both. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, sitting beside me. "How are you feeling?" That voice, that fake warmth, the same hand that had just been on my husband's leg now held mine. My stomach flipped. "Tired," I said flatly. "Where have you been?" "Just stretching my legs," she chirped. "This place is so stuffy." She squeezed my hand. That hand. I almost pulled away. Ethan went to make some calls. Another lie. He had been scrolling through Instagram on his personal phone the entire time. He entered a minute later, 2 coffees in hand. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning down to kiss my forehead. His lips were cold. My skin flinched. "You look better today." "I feel better." I studied his face. No flinching, no guilt, just practiced concern. "Patricia said I might be able to go home tomorrow." "That's great news," Ethan smiled. "Melody's offered to stay another week to help," he added. "If that's okay with you," she said quickly. "I know you're a super independent woman." Independent. They were stealing my life and calling me strong. "That would be wonderful," I smiled. "I don't know what I'd do without you two." They exchanged a glance. Brief, sharp, almost imperceptible. But I caught it. I was watching everything now. Later that evening, I asked Ethan to bring my laptop, said I needed to check on client emails. "You sure you're up for it?" he asked, hesitant. "Just for a few minutes," I said. He brought it. Melody brought tea. They tucked me in like a fragile vase and went about their evening. As soon as I was alone, I got to work. I sent myself the photos. I backed up the text. I searched for old messages, suspicious dates, business trips, birthdays they'd both missed. Then I opened a new email account, one I'd used to store everything, one they'd never find. And I looked up something I'd never thought I'd need in my marriage spyware: parental monitoring tools, keystroke logging, screen captures, automatic backup. I installed it on our shared business computer. Then I reached into my overnight bag and pulled out a voice recorder, something I'd ordered months ago for a business pitch. Never used it. Until now. I placed it behind the stack of books in the living room shelf. Voice activated. 8-hour battery life. They'd underestimated me. I wasn't weak. I was just waiting. At 2:41 a.m., I woke to the soft beep of the IV pump. The hallway was quiet. Somewhere down the corridor, a nurse laughed. The moonlight poured through the window, silver and cold. My eyes landed on the small potted plant someone had placed on the ledge. Its soil was cracked, leaves drooping. Forgotten. I leaned forward carefully, painfully, and touched one dry leaf. "Same here," I whispered. But not for long. Because tomorrow, I was going home. And that's when the real war would begin. The next morning, I was discharged from the hospital with a fresh bandage across my abdomen, a folder full of instructions, and a heart full of gasoline. Ethan wheeled me to the car like the doting husband he pretended to be. Melody walked beside us, clutching my overnight bag as if she hadn't spent the last week clutching my husband. The nurse handed Ethan the discharge paperwork. She'll need help for the next week, no lifting over 10 pounds. No driving. No stairs if you can help it. No problem, he said, smiling. I'll be working from home. Melody's offered to stay too, so we've got it covered. Of course, Melody added, her voice light and sunny. We're going to take great care of you. I gave them both the kind of smile I used to give clients I wanted to fire. Lucky me. The car ride home was drenched in forced normalcy. I sat in the passenger seat, every bump in the road rattling my core, while Melody filled the air with meaningless chatter. I rented a car in case I need to run errands. I didn't want to be a burden. Oh, you won't be, I said quietly. Our house looked the same as when I left it, a 2-story craftsman tucked into a quiet Seattle street, framed by a garden I'd built with my own hands. But now, the walls felt off. I looked at the windows and wondered how many times she'd walked through them when I wasn't home. The couch I picked out, the tea kettle I loved, the throw blanket I crocheted on cold nights while they were probably texting in secret. It wasn't just betrayal. It was contamination. Every space I'd once felt safe in had been touched by their lies. They settled me into the living room with blankets and herbal tea. Ethan brought my laptop and charger. Melody fluffed pillows like she was prepping a stage. Need anything else? Ethan asked, voice tender. I wanted to scream. Instead, I looked at him like the loving wife they thought I still was. I think I'll just rest. They finally left me alone. Ethan retreated to his home office, probably to draft fake work emails, and Melody went upstairs to unpack. That gave me 40 precious minutes. I opened my laptop and checked the spyware. Installed. Active. Every keystroke. Every screenshot. Every browser tab mine to see. I created a hidden folder and started documenting every inconsistency I remembered. Conference dates, trips Melody took that never added up, sudden calendar changes. I even flagged photos from our anniversary dinner Ethan had been texting nonstop that night. I once thought it was work stress. Now I knew it was her. Then I made tea. Not because I wanted it, but because I wanted to watch the plant. The small potted lavender sat in the same spot on the windowsill, dry, faded, neglected. I poured warm water slowly into the soil, watching it disappear instantly, like the plant had been thirsting for days. Its roots had clung to hope, just like mine. That plant became my mirror, and I'd water it every day until it bloomed again, just like I would. That night, I faked exhaustion early. I made sure my voice recorder was fully charged and hidden behind the bookshelf. It activated at 8:11 p.m. when they sat down together in the living room. Melody's voice. She seemed distant today. Ethan. She's on pain meds. Mel. She's barely conscious half the time. I don't know. She looked right at me when I brought the tea, like she knew something. Pause. You're being paranoid, he said. She exhaled. This is just harder than I thought. What if something had gone wrong during her surgery? There was a silence. Then Ethan said something that sent a chill down my spine. But it didn't. She's fine. And we can't put our lives on hold forever. Melody whispered, Yeah, but part of me wondered, if she had died, we wouldn't have to hurt her like this. My blood ran cold. They'd entertained the idea of my death, not just as a tragedy, but as a convenience. That night, I lay in bed next to Ethan. His arm grazed mine. I could smell his skin, still vaguely mixed with Melody's perfume. My stomach turned, but I didn't move. Not yet. By morning, my first plan was set. Our biggest contract, worth $800,000 annually, was with Morrison Hotels, a luxury chain we'd courted for 2 years. Ethan handled the client-facing side. I led the creative. What he didn't know was that I'd formed a strong connection with Rebecca Morrison, the CEO's daughter and marketing director. She was sharp, ambitious, and tired of being undermined by men with family money. She was also the perfect ally. I waited until Ethan left to pick up prescriptions and Melody went out for groceries. Then I called Rebecca directly from the home office. "Farah," she answered. "How are you feeling? Ethan told me about the surgery." "I'm recovering," I said, "but I need to talk to you privately." "Of course. What I'm about to say is personal, but it affects our working relationship." And I told her everything. The affair, the lies, the timing, the emotional and professional breach of trust. "I'm still committed to your campaign," I said, "but I can't let Ethan handle your brand when he's proven so unstable." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then, "This explains a lot. He's been distracted in meetings. Off? Honestly, I've been questioning whether he gets our brand at all." "I'll finish the proposal myself," I said. "Give me a week." "Send it over," she said. "If it's strong, we'll move forward. But just with you." That night, I opened Ethan's laptop and began archiving proof of inappropriate business use expenses that had nothing to do with work: hotel rooms, dinner charges, a flight to Portland during a supposed conference. He'd used our joint business credit card, which meant I had legal ground. I wasn't just documenting a betrayal, I was building a case. Around 11 p.m., I heard a low murmur through the vents. They were back in the living room again. "Melody, what if she finds out?" "Ethan, she won't. She's too busy healing." "Melody, you don't think she'd leave us everything? The house, the business?" Ethan laughed under his breath. "She's not wired like that. She wants to look strong. She'll pretend nothing happened just to save face." They didn't see me as a woman, not even as a wife. They saw me as a brand, a product, a woman who wouldn't break the image she worked so hard to build. That was their mistake. Because I wasn't going to break the image. I was going to redefine it. And when I did, they'd wish I had just walked away quietly. The next few days were a masterclass in make-believe. Ethan played the devoted husband, checking my temperature, asking if I needed more pillows, reheating soup like a nurse in a Hallmark movie. Melody, ever the thoughtful sister, folded my laundry and left little cheer-up notes on my nightstand like the betrayal she carried in her bones could be softened by sticky notes. It was disgusting, but I played along. Every fake smile they gave me, I smiled back harder. Every lie they told, I logged it, filed it, time-stamped it. I was no longer just healing. I was documenting everything. Melody made a batch of banana bread the morning after she and Ethan whispered about how easier life might have been if I hadn't made it through surgery. I took a bite. It was perfect. Moist, sweet. The kind that usually made me nostalgic. But this time, it tasted like poison disguised as comfort, like the entire performance they were staging in my living room. "Do you remember when we were little and you used to steal my diary?" I asked her casually as she sat across from me on the couch. She blinked. "What?" "You'd read it and deny everything, then cry when Mom caught you. And somehow, I always ended up apologizing." She laughed a little, unsure. "Yeah, I was such a brat." I sipped my tea slowly. "You still are." A pause, a flicker in her eyes. But I didn't press. Not yet. Each night, I listened to the recordings while they slept. "Melody, I hate lying to her." "Ethan? You think I like it, but we're almost there. We'll sit her down. Explain. We didn't plan it, that we tried to fight it." "Melody, she's not stupid." "Ethan, she's emotional. She'll spiral. She'll act like we murdered someone. But she'll move on." "She's not a woman who moves on quietly," Melody said. And she was right. I wasn't. I was a woman who waited, who planned, who struck with precision. And the strike was coming. 3 key pieces of information dropped within the next 48 hours. First, I caught Melody using my office printer to copy something. When I checked the history later, It was an apartment rental application for a luxury condo in Portland. 2 bedrooms, balcony view, move-in date next month. Second, Ethan received a call from a number labeled CPD Consulting. When he left the room, I used my spyware access to pull up his emails. Turns out, CPD was a shell company they'd registered together. They weren't just cheating on me, they were replacing me. In business, in the home, in every way that mattered. Third, Ethan scheduled a meeting with a bank manager. I listened to the call through a recording he asked about moving assets between accounts. They were getting ready to cut me out completely. That night, I wrote a name in bold on the corner of my notebook. John, my brother-in-law, Ethan's older brother, former Marine, now a private investigator who ran a small agency in Spokane. John and I had always been close. He never liked Melody much, always called her a siren with a glitter smile. I called him from my car the next morning. I told Ethan I needed fresh air. I didn't say I was driving 1 block away and parking near the lake so I could make a secure call. John answered after 2 rings, Farah. I need your help, I said. My voice shook. Are you okay? No, I whispered, but I will be, if you can help me bring them down. He didn't even hesitate. Say no more. What do you need? I gave him access to all my digital evidence, the spyware logs, the audio files, the photos, everything. I also told him about the CPD LLC and asked him to pull public records on it. I'll find out everything, he promised, and if they moved any funds, I'll track it. When I hung up, I stared at the water outside my windshield. A mother and daughter were feeding ducks nearby. So peaceful, so distant from the war I was quietly fighting. I looked at my hands. A month ago, they were shaking on a hospital bed. Now they were building the scaffolding for the destruction of 2 people who thought I was too soft to fight back. When I got home, Ethan was in the middle of a video call with one of our hotel clients. Melody stood nearby, pouring wine into 2 glasses, one for herself, one for him. They thought I'd be gone for hours. I hovered silently in the hallway, just out of view. Client, we're concerned about the last batch of mock-ups. Ethan, I'll have Farah review those and circle back. She's still in recovery, but she's catching up. Melody whispered something I couldn't hear. Ethan chuckled mid-call, then muted the mic and leaned in to kiss her neck. That was it. That was it. They weren't waiting for anything anymore. They had decided the script. Play the devoted family while I recovered. Wait 2 weeks. Break the news. Split the company. Move to Portland. Rebrand as a new power couple. The only problem, I'd already started rebranding myself as the woman who would end them. I spent the next 12 hours assembling a master file. Screenshots, timestamps, audio clips, financials, apartment listings, business records. I color-coded everything, labeled every incident by date and severity. I called it Project Lavender, because like the plant on my windowsill, I had nearly withered. But now I was turning that pain into bloom. The next morning, I got a text from Rebecca Morrison. Saw the draft. Loved it. Meeting next Thursday, just you and me. Absolutely, I replied. I just sealed the future of the company without Ethan ever knowing, which meant I was now stronger than the betrayal that tried to break me. And soon, the world would know exactly who Farah Rivers really was. Thursday morning, I sat on the edge of the bed slowly, painfully watching sunlight crawl across the hardwood floor like it hadn't witnessed the things I had. Ethan had already left for a site meeting, and Melody was upstairs on a video call, her voice sweet and professional, like she wasn't sleeping with her sister's husband on the side. I stared at the lavender plant on the windowsill. 2 full blossoms now. You're recovering. So am I whispered. But recovery wasn't enough anymore. It was time to strike. The night before, I had finished assembling the last file in Project Lavender. With John's help, I now had irrefutable proof Ethan and Melody had filed for an LLC in Oregon under the name CPD Creative, using multiple client strategies pulled from Rivers Marketing. Not only were they planning to steal my company, they were stealing my intellectual property, campaign concepts, design pitches, even brand decks I'd personally created and watermarked. They were building a business on my back. John had even found drafts of proposals in Ethan's inbox labeled Revised for CPD. I hadn't seen any of those versions, because I wasn't meant to. They weren't just trying to take my marriage or my clients. They were trying to erase me. "You don't erase Farrah Rivers," I muttered, dragging open my laptop. "You just give her a reason." I made 3 calls that morning. The first was to Rebecca Morrison, to confirm our one-on-one meeting next Thursday. The second was to Helen Karp, the chair of the Seattle Business Women's Fund and organizer of the annual charity gala. Ethan and Melody were planning to attend together. Ethan had RSVP'd as a networking delegate, while Melody would attend in my place, representing Rivers Marketing. What they didn't know was that I'd worked with Helen before years ago, on a mentorship campaign. "Farrah," she said, "I heard you've been ill. How are you?" "Getting stronger," I replied, "which is why I need your help." I explained carefully, factually the truth, the affair, the stolen work, the fake representation at a public event meant to promote ethical business partnerships. "I'm not looking to start a scandal," I said, "but I think it's only fair that the crowd knows what's really happening." Helen paused for half a second. Then, "Leave it to me, darling. Discretion with impact." She didn't have to tell me what that meant. Helen was classy, but she also loved a teachable moment. My third call was to Benjamin Walsh, my lawyer. "I'm ready," I said. "I want to file." "Divorce or business protection?" "Both." He walked me through the paperwork we'd prepared weeks earlier. If filed, it would grant me an injunction against Ethan moving any assets, allow me to freeze company accounts until division, and initiate legal discovery into misuse of funds, especially those used to support CPD Creative. He also mentioned something else. If we can prove Melody was involved in using Rivers Marketing Resources printers, computers, pitch files that could count as internal theft, even if she's not an employee. "So she's not just a mistress," I said quietly. "She's a liability." "Exactly. I want the papers served the day after the gala." That night, I played my role one last time. Melody made dinner. Ethan poured wine. We sat around the table pretending everything was fine. They smiled at each other when they thought I wasn't looking. Her laugh still perfect. His charm still turned on for show. And me? I was the ghost of their future, already haunting the thing they hadn't even built yet. "Do you think you'll be okay on Saturday?" Ethan asked between bites. "Oh, for the gala," I tilted my head. "You two should go without me. You've both been doing such a great job representing the company." Melody blinked. Ethan hesitated. "You sure?" "Positive." I smiled and raised my glass. "To successful partnerships." They clinked their glasses without irony. After dinner, while they watched a movie, I slipped back into the office and double-checked the live stream settings on my laptop. I created a private link, enabled cloud backup, positioned the camera at chest level, angled at the living room couch. Then I set up 3 more devices, one on the bookshelf, one behind the TV, one near the hallway. All motion triggered. All recording. "You want a confession?" I whispered to myself. "Let's give the people a press conference." The next morning, I walked into the kitchen to find Melody sipping coffee, scrolling her phone. She glanced up. "You're up early." I opened the cabinet and pulled out a mug. "I didn't sleep well." She frowned. "Nerves." I shrugged. The usual pain, betrayal, murder fantasies. She froze mid-sip, then chuckled, awkwardly. I smiled, kidding. She didn't ask what kind of pain I meant. That afternoon, I saw Ethan slipping into his home office to finalize the gala speech. I could hear him practicing through the door. Integrity is the cornerstone of every brand. Without it, we lose trust, direction, and value. I laughed so hard, I had to muffle it with a dish towel. Trust, I whispered. He thinks he's branded it. Saturday morning arrived like a loaded gun. Melody stood at the mirror in a navy cocktail dress, the same one I had gifted her last Christmas. Ethan wore a gray tailored suit, matching pocket square. The perfect picture. "I'll text you updates," Melody said, blowing me a kiss. "Can't wait," I replied. They left at 5:42 p.m. At 5:43, I brewed myself a cup of chamomile tea, sat on the couch, and opened the live stream. At 6:11 p.m., the lights dimmed in the ballroom. The camera operator panned to the podium. Helen Karp took the stage in a dark red blazer, her smile warm, microphone in hand. "We're here tonight to celebrate ethical innovation, partnership, and trust in business. And in that spirit, I want to take a moment to recognize some standout partnerships in the room." She began naming companies, CEOs and co-founders, married couples running charities. Then calm, confident. And of course, Ethan Rivers and his partner, Melody Lane, representing Rivers Marketing while Ethan's wife, Farah, recovers at home. A round of applause for their dedication. The ballroom fell into stunned silence. One man clapped, then stopped. A camera panned to Ethan and Melody, frozen, wide-eyed, faces drained. Melody's hand slowly dropped from Ethan's arm. Ethan glanced around like someone had just shouted fire. I sipped my tea. The lavender plant on the sill behind me shimmered in the golden light. 3 blossoms now. The fallout from the gala hit faster than I expected. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed non-stop with texts from mutual friends, coworkers, and even distant colleagues I hadn't spoken to in months. "Did Helen really out Ethan and Melody on stage, Farah? Are you okay? Everyone's talking about it. Girl, I always knew something was off. You deserve better." By 10 a.m., screenshots and clips of the livestream had made their way onto LinkedIn, Reddit, even a local business gossip blog titled, "The Rivers Are Drying Up." I sat on the couch, tea in hand, lavender in bloom behind me, watching the chaos unfold from the comfort of my own living room. "You built a lie," I whispered, scrolling through the reactions. I just turned on the lights. Ethan and Melody didn't come home until after midnight. I pretended to be asleep, but I heard every creak of the floor, every muttered curse, every angry whisper behind their closed door. "He set us up," Melody hissed. "This wasn't an accident, this was deliberate." "You mean she—" Ethan snapped. "Farah did this. I don't know how, but she did." Melody's voice cracked. "Everyone saw us. My boss texted me asking if I'd lost my damn mind." "You weren't even supposed to be there officially." Ethan growled. "Why did you agree to speak?" "I didn't know she knew." I smiled to myself in the dark. That's the thing about secrets. The moment they hit oxygen, they rot. The next morning, I made French press coffee and waited. Ethan emerged first, face pale, hair unkempt, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from the night before. "Morning," I said gently. He flinched. "Hey." "Late night." He said nothing. I sipped my coffee slowly, savoring the silence. Melody came down 20 minutes later, avoiding eye contact, holding her phone like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the earth. I looked at her and said, "You left your navy dress on the bathroom door. Just tossed it in the wash for you." Her cheeks drained of color. A reminder I still ran this house. I still saw everything. That afternoon, I met with Benjamin in person. He laid the finalized divorce and business separation papers in front of me. There were multiple versions, one for amicable mediation, one for hostile takeover, and one with scorched earth clauses. "I'm guessing we're going with the third one," he said dryly. "Absolutely." We reviewed the files John had compiled, metadata logs from the CPD Creative server, document copies showing clear plagiarism from our company decks, even the bank records showing diverted client funds. "We're filing for misappropriation of intellectual property," Benjamin said, "combined with adultery, misuse of shared assets, and attempted concealment of financial activity." He looked up at me, impressed. "This is one of the cleanest revenge cases I've ever seen." I gave a soft laugh. "It's not revenge, it's a correction." Meanwhile, Ethan tried to rally what was left of his reputation. He reached out to two of our biggest clients only to find they'd already signed directly with me. Rebecca Morrison had not only canceled his meetings, she'd published a short piece on her blog about ethical clarity in leadership transitions. It went viral in corporate circles. The caption? "Sometimes a company must choose between integrity and illusion. We chose integrity." Ethan never saw it coming. Neither did Melody until her boss, Catherine Walsh, emailed her directly. Subject: Urgent Conduct Review. The message was short and brutal. "Due to recent revelations about your involvement in an ongoing personal and professional conflict and evidence of inappropriate use of company time and devices, we are terminating your contract effective immediately." Melody didn't scream. She collapsed quietly, in the hallway, clutching her phone with both hands, like it might turn back time if she held it tight enough. Ethan found her there. "What happened?" She looked up at him, mascara smudged, voice shaking. "I lost my job." He blinked. "What?" "She sent me screenshots, Ethan, from the spyware, of us, at work, at home, on company Wi-Fi." His face went white, then red. "Farah," he growled. I appeared at the top of the stairs. "You called?" He spun. "What did you do?" I walked down slowly, one hand on the railing, my steps careful but steady. "I told the truth," I said, "and the truth did the rest." "You've destroyed everything." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed everything. I just sent the invoices." That night, while they sat in the kitchen in stunned silence, I hosted a private live stream on an unlisted link. The invitees, my parents, Ethan's brother John, our two closest friends, Lisa and Tom, and Benjamin. I wanted witnesses. At 8 p.m. sharp, I called them all into the living room. Ethan and Melody sat stiffly on the couch. The others formed a loose semicircle. I stood in front of them and said, "They have something they'd like to share." Melody whispered, "Farah, don't." Ethan said nothing. So I opened my laptop and clicked play. The screen displayed folders, photos, screenshots, voice recordings, bank statements. I played the audio clip from the hospital window of Ethan and Melody kissing in the cafe. Then the one of Melody whispering, "If she had died, it would have been easier." Lisa gasped. My father stood up. Tom muttered, "Jesus Christ." John said nothing, but his jaw clenched so tightly his temples twitched. I played the recording of their post-gala argument. The confession was complete. And the final piece I handed Ethan and Melody, each a manila envelope. "Your copies of the legal filings," I said, "divorce, business dissolution, IP theft charges, and a cease and desist for CPD Creative." Melody was crying. Ethan was silent. "You two wanted to build a life together," I said softly. "Now you get to just not with my name, my work, or my money attached." I stood there, steady, grounded, eyes dry. The pain had already done its work. Now came the healing and the clarity that only comes after the storm. "Farah," Ethan whispered, "this isn't justice, it's vengeance." "No," I said, "justice would have been leaving you both in the dirt. This is mercy." He looked stunned. "I still gave you a platform," I added. "I just turned the volume up so the world could hear what you really sound like." John closed the front door behind the last guest, then turned to me, eyes sharp beneath his usual calm. "There's something else," he said, something they tried to bury. I followed him into the kitchen. He pulled out his tablet, tapped the screen, and rotated it toward me. An Oregon business license. Filed under CPD Creative. Authorized signers, Ethan Rivers and Melody Lane. My breath left my body like a punch to the gut. "This was filed weeks ago," John said, "right around the time of your biopsy, while you were waiting to find out if the tumor was cancer." He tapped again, pulled up another document. They also opened a joint bank account in Portland, started transferring small amounts out of Rivers Marketing's operating account using vendor names they made up. My stomach twisted. "How much?" I asked. "About 30 grand, so far." $30,000. While I lay in bed, unable to sit up straight, while Ethan kissed my forehead and whispered, "Don't worry, I've got you." They were stealing my future, dollar by dollar. "And this," John added, pulling up one last file. "They used your Morrison pitch." My eyes narrowed. He showed me a screenshot of a draft CPD proposal titled Luxury Redefined Urban Oasis Branding for Morrison Hotels, the exact name of my internal project doc. Same layout, same headline copy, word for word. My hands clenched into fists. My voice came out quiet, too quiet. They committed corporate theft, using my intellectual property, while pretending to love me. John nodded. "We have everything we need for criminal charges." The next 48 hours were a blur of legal motion. Benjamin filed formal complaints with the State Bar Association, the Small Business Bureau, and Civil Court. A criminal complaint was submitted for theft of intellectual property and misappropriation of business assets. Within a day, we had a court-issued freeze on all joint accounts. CPD Creative's accounts were flagged for audit. The business license in Oregon was suspended pending investigation. But we weren't done yet. On Wednesday, Melody showed up at my door, pale and shaky, holding a small paper bag of baked goods from our old favorite bakery. "I just want to talk," she said. "Please." I let her in. She set the bag on the counter and stood there wringing her hands. "I know I've done terrible things. I'm not here to justify it," she said. "But I just wanted to say, I never wanted to hurt you. I was lonely. And Ethan, he made me feel seen." I leaned against the counter, arms folded. I didn't respond. "You were always so put together," she said, her voice cracking. "The perfect house, the perfect business, the perfect husband. I just wanted to be part of it." Her jealousy had always been there. I just never thought it would take everything from me to expose it. "You didn't want to be part of it," I said finally. "You wanted to replace me." Melody's lips quivered. "Are you really pressing charges?" "Yes." She looked down. "They're saying I could lose my license if it's ruled professional misconduct." I tilted my head. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before using company devices to plan an affair on business hours." Her tears fell freely now. I lost my job, my apartment, my reputation. Everyone's talking about me like I'm some home-wrecking criminal. "Then stop being one," I said quietly. She looked up, eyes pleading. "We were sisters." "No," I said. "We shared parents. You chose something else." She walked out 10 minutes later without saying goodbye. That evening, Benjamin called with an update. "The DA is taking it seriously," he said. "The corporate theft angle makes it bigger than a private matter. If it goes to trial, you'll be asked to testify." I looked out the window. The lavender plant stood tall now, 6 blossoms. Its scent reached the kitchen. "I'll testify," I said, gladly. Thursday, 9:00 a.m. Courtroom. Ethan and Melody sat at the defendant's table, dressed in muted grays, faces drawn. They looked small, so much smaller than the towering figures they used to be in my life. My lawyer presented every shred of evidence: the audio, the screenshots, the financial logs, the copied proposals. A forensic accountant walked the court through every fraudulent transfer. The judge reviewed it all with steely calm. And then, the decision came fast. The court finds sufficient cause to pursue formal charges of corporate theft, financial misconduct, and breach of fiduciary duty. They would be tried in civil and criminal court. The courtroom buzzed. Melody sobbed silently. Ethan just stared straight ahead, jaw locked. Outside the courthouse, I stood in the cold morning air, wrapped in my gray wool coat. The press wasn't there. No viral TikTok, no blog article, just me and the wind. John joined me. "Still think this isn't revenge?" he asked. "No," I said. "It's something better." He nodded, then handed me a small envelope. Inside a photo, one I hadn't seen before. Melody and Ethan, at a hotel in Portland, dated 9 months ago. Same week I had my panic attack and Ethan canceled our anniversary trip, saying work emergency. I stared at the photo, then folded it neatly and slipped it into my coat pocket. No tears, just clarity. 3 weeks passed. Melody moved in with our parents, who barely spoke to her. Ethan tried to salvage CPD Creative, but no investor wanted to touch him. One by one, his few remaining clients dropped off. He filed for bankruptcy. They broke up a month later. No ceremony, no fanfare, just a quiet ending to a love built on lies. Turns out, when no one's left to deceive, some relationships dissolve on their own. Me. I changed the company name to Rivers Marketing, dropped the possessive, because I didn't need it to belong to us anymore. It was mine. Rebecca Morrison gave us a new annual contract. That led to 3 more luxury brands. Word got out that I'd stood up for myself, that I protected what I built, that I wouldn't be erased. I sold the house Too Many Ghosts and bought a smaller place with a sunroom, hardwood floors, and a garden where the lavender bloomed stronger than ever. I placed the old potted plant right by the front window. Every morning, I opened the blinds. I no longer looked down through windows hoping for truth. I was the truth. The anonymous message sat on my phone like a whisper in the dark. "You're welcome." No name, no number, just that. I stared at it for a long moment, my tea cooling in my hands, the scent of lavender brushing my senses like a memory. Part of me felt unsettled. How long had someone else been watching? Who was playing silent guardian while I fought my war? But another part of me smiled. Because maybe, just maybe, I hadn't been as alone as I thought. A week later, I stood in the middle of my new office, a sun-drenched studio with tall windows, white oak floors, and a wall of mood boards full of fresh campaigns. My company, Rivers Marketing, now had a team of 5 hand-picked creatives. Every one of them had reached out to me after hearing what happened. They wanted to work with someone who stood up, not someone who bowed quietly to betrayal. Clients came not just because of the work, but because of the story. People trusted someone who had survived a public crucifixion and walked out stronger, who knew the cost of silence, and chose to speak anyway. Even in business, reputation isn't just about results. It's about values. And my name, Farrah Rivers, now meant something more than just clever campaigns. It meant boundaries. It meant resilience. It meant you don't get to hurt me twice. Still, some nights, I lay awake and asked myself, did I go too far? The lawsuits, the public outing, the criminal charges, the strategic humiliation. There's a fine line between justice and vengeance. But every time I doubted, I went back to the root of it all the moment I looked out that hospital window and realized the 2 people I loved most had already written me out of their lives. While I was preparing to die, they were planning their future. That's not just betrayal. That's erasure. And you don't come back from that by being nice. You come back by being undeniable. I kept the lavender plant. It was full now, thick, wild, fragrant. I moved it to the center of the room, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Growth is messy. Healing is not polite. But both are possible if you do the work and stay honest. A few months later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Your mother would have been proud. Jay. I knew who it was. Not John. The handwriting didn't match. It was Jacob, my mom's old paralegal. She'd always trusted him. After she died, he'd quietly helped me with the early days of our company setting up the LLC, reviewing our first contracts. I hadn't seen him in years. But somehow he'd been watching, or helping, or both. The world has a funny way of bringing silent allies into the light once you've proven you can stand alone. One morning, I saw Ethan at the grocery store. He looked thinner, older. He pushed a small cart with just 2 items in it, instant coffee and discount shampoo. His blazer was wrinkled. He saw me at checkout, paused, then gave a weak nod. I nodded back. No smile, no words. Just 2 people who once shared a life, now sharing nothing but air. And honestly, it didn't hurt. Not anymore. Melody moved to Nevada. Someone said she was taking online courses to become a nurse. I hope she finds peace. I don't wish her pain. I just don't owe her anything. That's the difference between healing and forgetting. A year after the lawsuit was settled, I was asked to speak at a women's leadership summit. The topic: Rebuilding from Betrayal, the Power of Truth in Business and Life. I stood in front of 600 women entrepreneurs, executives, mothers, daughters, and told the story. All of it. From the hospital window to the courtroom. From the tears to the tea. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then came the applause. But more powerful than that, the eyes. Hundreds of women who had seen themselves in parts of my story. Who knew what it meant to be replaced. To be doubted. To be underestimated. And to rise anyway. I ended my talk with one truth I'd learned the hard way. Fear is a powerful motivator, but self-respect is louder. Make sure the story they tell about you is yours. So, to anyone watching this right now, if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been told to let it go just to keep the peace, if you've ever had your pain brushed off as drama, here's what I'll say. You are not dramatic. You are aware. You are not bitter. You are awake. You don't need to explode to reclaim your power. You just need to reclaim the truth. The world didn't break me. It revealed me. And I'm not afraid anymore. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. What would you have done? Like if you believe betrayal deserves consequences. And subscribe because we've got more stories that prove you don't mess with the wrong woman and walk away clean.